For years, the idea of gaming on Linux sounded like a joke to most people. If you were a PC gamer, the expectation was simple. You used Windows. That was the rule. Game developers targeted Windows. Graphics drivers were optimized for Windows, and the entire ecosystem revolved around Microsoft's platform. Linux users, on the other hand, often had to struggle with compatibility layers, complicated setups, and the occasional disappointment when a game simply refused to run. But something dramatic has been happening over the last few years, and now we're reaching a point where the conversation is completely different. Today, Linux is not just catching up in gaming. In some scenarios, especially on handheld gaming devices, it's actually beating Windows, and one distribution is quietly leading that revolution. Bazzite. If you've never heard of Bazzite before, you're not alone. It isn't as famous as Ubuntu or Linux Mint, and it doesn't try to compete with traditional desktop Linux distributions. Instead, Bazzite focuses on something very specific, delivering the best possible gaming experience on modern devices, especially handheld gaming systems. Think about devices like the Steam Deck, ASUS ROG Ally, Lenovo Legion Go, or other handheld PCs that combine console-style portability with PC power. These machines are powerful, but the operating system you run on them determines whether the experience feels smooth and console-like or clunky and frustrating. This is where Bazzite comes in. Bazzite is built on top of Fedora's atomic ecosystem, meaning it uses a modern, stable, and secure foundation designed for reliability. But what makes it truly interesting is that it transforms Linux into something that feels almost like a console operating system. When you boot into Bazzite on a handheld device, you're not greeted by a typical desktop environment filled with menus and system tools. Instead, you're dropped straight into a gaming interface that feels polished, responsive, and purpose-built for controllers. This design philosophy removes the complexity that often scares people away from Linux. Instead of configuring drivers, installing compatibility layers, or tweaking performance settings manually, Bazzite does all the heavy lifting for you. To understand why Bazzite is gaining attention, we need to talk about the massive technological shift that has taken place in Linux gaming. The biggest catalyst for this change has been Valve's Proton compatibility layer. Proton is essentially a modified version of Wine combined with additional gaming technologies that allow Windows games to run on Linux with incredible compatibility. Thanks to Proton, thousands of games that were originally designed only for Windows now run on Linux almost flawlessly. In many cases, the performance difference is negligible. Sometimes the Linux version even performs better because the operating system itself is lighter and more efficient. Bazzite takes full advantage of Proton and integrates it seamlessly into the gaming environment. Instead of forcing users to install compatibility layers manually, Bazzite ships with everything When you install the system, you already have access to Steam with Proton support ready to go. Launch a game, and the system handles the rest. This simplicity is incredibly important, especially for handheld devices where users expect a plug-and-play experience similar to a console. Another major reason Bazzite is turning heads is how well it works on handheld gaming PCs compared to Windows. Windows was never designed with handheld gaming devices in mind. It was built primarily for desktops and laptops, using keyboards and mice. When manufacturers started releasing handheld PCs that ran Windows, many users quickly discovered the limitations of the operating system. Navigating the interface with a joystick can feel awkward. Performance can be inconsistent. Battery life often suffers, and system updates sometimes interrupt the gaming experience at the worst possible times. Bazzite approaches the problem differently. Instead of forcing a desktop operating system into a handheld form factor, it adapts the entire Linux experience to fit the handheld gaming model. The interface is optimized for controllers. Background processes are minimized to improve performance and battery life. Updates are handled in a way that keeps the system stable without interrupting gameplay. The result is an experience that feels much closer to a dedicated gaming console than a traditional PC. One of the biggest strengths of Bazzite is how it leverages the same core technologies that power the Steam Deck. Valve's handheld gaming device has played a huge role in changing perceptions about Linux gaming. When the Steam Deck launched, many people were skeptical that Linux could handle modern AAA games. But Valve invested heavily in the Linux gaming ecosystem, improving graphics drivers, enhancing Proton compatibility, and contributing to open-source projects across the entire stack. The result was a device capable of running thousands of games smoothly on Linux. Bazzite essentially brings that same philosophy to other handheld devices. If you own something like the ASUS ROG Ally or Lenovo Legion Go, installing Bazzite can transform the experience. Instead of struggling with Windows Touch interface or dealing with heavy system overhead, you get a streamlined gaming environment similar to what Steam Deck users enjoy. Games launch faster, the interface is easier to navigate, and the overall system feels more responsive. Another area where Bazzite shines is performance optimization. Gaming performance on handheld devices is a delicate balance between power consumption, thermals, and frame rates. Windows often struggles with this balance because it runs many background services that aren't necessary for gaming. Bazzite, on the other hand, is designed to focus almost entirely on gaming tasks. By reducing unnecessary system overhead, it can allocate more resources to the game itself. This can lead to smoother frame rates and improved battery efficiency. Driver support is another critical factor in gaming performance, and Linux has made enormous progress in this area. AMD graphics drivers in particular are extremely strong on Linux because they are open source and integrated directly into the kernel. Since many handheld gaming PCs use AMD hardware, Linux distributions like Bazzite can deliver excellent compatibility and performance out of the box. Updates to drivers are also distributed through the Linux ecosystem quickly, meaning improvements arrive faster than many people expect. Bazzite also includes a variety of gaming-focused tools that enhance the experience beyond what a typical operating system provides. Features like frame rate limiting, performance overlays, and power management tools allow players to fine-tune their gaming sessions for maximum efficiency. These tools are integrated into the interface in a way that feels natural and easy to access with a controller. Instead of digging through complicated menus, you can adjust settings quickly while staying immersed in the game. Another fascinating aspect of Bazzite is how it embraces the flexibility of Linux, while still maintaining a console-like simplicity. Advanced users can still access the underlying Linux system if they want to customize things further. You can install additional applications, use desktop environments, or even run emulators for retro gaming systems. This means Bazzite can function as both a dedicated gaming console and a fully capable Linux computer, depending on how you want to use it. Retro gaming is actually another area where Bazzite shines. Because Linux has a strong ecosystem of emulators, users can easily turn their handheld devices into powerful retro gaming machines. From classic arcade games to PlayStation titles and Nintendo consoles, the possibilities are enormous. Combining modern PC gaming with retro emulation creates a truly versatile gaming platform that few traditional consoles can match. One of the biggest myths about Linux gaming is that it requires technical knowledge or constant troubleshooting. While that may have been true years ago, distributions like Bazzite are proving that the landscape has changed. Installation has become easier, compatibility has improved dramatically, and the user experience has become far more polished. Many gamers who try Bazzite for the first time are surprised by how simple everything feels. There is also a growing sense that the future of PC gaming might not belong exclusively to Windows anymore. The rise of handheld gaming PCs, the success of the Steam Deck, and the rapid improvement of Linux compatibility layers are all pushing the industry toward a more open ecosystem. Developers are increasingly aware that supporting Linux can expand their audience, especially as more devices adopt Linux-based operating systems. Of course, Linux gaming still has some challenges. Certain multiplayer games with aggressive anti-cheat systems remain incompatible with Proton, and some developers continue to focus primarily on Windows support. But progress is happening quickly. Many anti-cheat technologies now support Linux, and more developers are recognizing the importance of cross-platform compatibility. What makes Bazzite particularly exciting is that it represents a glimpse of what the future could look like if Linux continues to gain momentum in the gaming world. Imagine a future where handheld gaming PC is shipped with Linux-based operating systems optimized specifically for gaming. Imagine a future where developers treat Linux as a first-class platform rather than an afterthought. Bazzite is showing that this vision is not only possible but already happening. For gamers who are tired of Windows updates interrupting their sessions, frustrated by bloated software running in the background, or curious about exploring alternatives, Bazzite offers something refreshing. It combines the power and flexibility of Linux with the simplicity and convenience of a gaming console. And when you run it on a handheld device, the result is an experience that feels incredibly polished. What started as an experiment in Linux gaming has now evolved into a serious alternative to Windows for many players. Bazzite demonstrates that a carefully designed Linux distribution can deliver performance, stability, and usability that rivals or even surpasses traditional gaming setups. The fact that this is happening on portable gaming devices makes the story even more compelling. The gaming industry is constantly evolving, and sometimes the biggest changes come from unexpected places. A few years ago, very few people would have predicted that a Linux-based operating system would be challenging Windows in the gaming space. But thanks to open source innovation, collaboration between companies like Valve and the Linux community, and projects like Bazzite pushing the boundaries of what's possible, the landscape is shifting. Whether Linux will completely replace Windows for gaming remains to be seen. But what's clear is that the competition is stronger than ever. And in the world of handheld gaming PCs, Bazzite is proving that Linux isn't just an alternative anymore. In many ways, it's becoming the better choice.